pledge, and that's to the pledge to the flag of the United States of America. So if you gentlemen will remove your hats, we're going to give the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We've got a number of different organizations here representing their groups, and they include Children of the Confederacy, Daughters of the American Revolution, 5th Alabama Infantry Regiment Band, Order of the Southern Cross, Sons of the American Revolution, Sons of Confederate Veterans, United Daughters of the Confederacy, and Military Order of the Stars and Bars. I hope I haven't omitted anyone. If I have, you'll raise your hand, I'll recognize your organization. I want to give a special thanks to 4 people here today without whose help this would not have happened. And Darrell Craig Patterson, Mayor of Gordo, was instrumental in pulling a lot of folks together on this project. Darrell's a member of the SAR and also MOS&B in Tuscaloosa, those chapters, and we're very grateful to him. His nephew, Justin Burns, fabricated and delivered, involved multiple trips here, the concrete pad and concrete trunnions. And so we're grateful to Justin Burns for his efforts and generosity. Contractor Thad Goldman is due a great debt of gratitude for literally relocating the cannon. Those of you who've been here before know that it was just this side of the monument in the Sandy area, and Thad with his equipment brought it outside of the cemetery and did the site prep here for the foundation for the cannon, and it was just vital to our success. So I want to thank Thad Goldman Contracting as well. Finally, I want to thank M.G. Lamb and Melanie McClellan, who are also from Gainesville, and M.G. is the caregiver for this cemetery and keeps it up year-round, and has specifically spiced it up for us today. We're very grateful. He also has been here throughout all of the activities with this cannon. Were it not for MG, this project literally would not have happened. So I want to give you a round of applause, and we're very, very grateful. His significant other, Melanie McClellan, has been prodding him the whole way, for which we're grateful. And he and she have invited all of us to their beautiful home in town. Those of you who don't know where it is, if you'll come back out to the blacktop, take a right, go to the stop sign, through the stop sign's first house on the left. Beautiful, beautiful home on your left. White house, and you'll see the automobiles parked around it. It's my pleasure to ask Walter Dockery. He's former commander of Sons of Confederate Veterans and also Military Order of the Stars and Bars, General Josiah Gorgas chapter. He has been involved in the history of Gainesville for several decades. I'm not going to ask him to tell us how many years, but for a long time. And he has some presentation he'd like to make today, and then I've got some presentations after you. This is Walter Dockery.
Thank you, Bill. All right, y'all must stand close to this thing. Wish it was mine, but they wouldn't give it to me. My involvement came in April of 1995. Y'all had a UDC lady here. She was also, I think, the historian of Gainesville. and she met me at the Tuscaloosa Public Library, and she was almost in tears. She had met a gentleman down here and found out that he was with the Naval Department. Anybody don't know it, this gun belongs to the U.S. Navy. I don't know what they do with it, but it belongs to them. But anyway, any Confederate armament after the war belonged to the U.S. Navy or Army. And she was afraid that the way the cannon was situated, which was the castle was down in the ground about 6 or 9 inches, with the muzzle sticking at a slight incline. Afraid the water getting into it might rust it. Friends, when we got that thing up, it was as good as the top of it was. This being wrought iron, it don't seem to rust too good. And I think it was thinking, well, I'm not going to lose any of my luster because the Yankees may come back sometime. The cannon was actually a tourist attraction as well as being here when they had the Battle of Gainesville. The people would come by and the children would crawl on it and they'd get their picture taken with it, which everybody wanted to do, because this is a very historic cannon. It was one of 2 that had been transported from Mobile back to Gainesville at Hernando Bluff when the war was almost at an end. And when they heard that the Yankees may be, or found out the Yankees may be on their way to Gainesville, the unit that was in charge of it pushed those 2 into the river. Now in 1874 or 6, the United Confederate veterans, along with the townspeople, got this thing out of the river. Don't ask me how. I'd never be able to figure out how they did it. I know how they pushed it in, but getting it out was a different story. But it was brought here to the cemetery, and it was placed right in front of this monument. And we have some pictures of Confederate Memorial Day where people were gathering around and showed the cannon, and there were quite a few people at that time. Also, it was had 2 stories to it. One of them said the cannon was mounted straight up or sitting straight up, which doesn't make too much credibility, because if it fell, it sure not got not on somebody's head. But it was at that incline, and that was where it was placed. I think it might have been placed a little bit better than it was when we found it, because on those days, sometimes they would fire the cannon with a small amount of powder and no projectile, I wouldn't think. General Forrest surrendered May 9th, also 1865, and some of the soldiers that were here were a part of the 38th Tennessee. Let me explain a little bit about the 38th Tennessee. When the Sumter Grays and actually the Tuscaloosa Plowboys were going through training, there was undoubtedly measles or mumps or something going around. So they couldn't go through training with their regular units, and they were held back in training. And they went into training with Tennessee unit regiment, which was called the 38th Tennessee. And it went through the war as the 38th Tennessee. Tuscaloosa Plowboys, Company G, 38th Tennessee. After the Battle of Shiloh, this Company A of the 38th Tennessee, which was the Sumter Grays, were made into a artillery unit, in which they stayed an artillery unit until the end of the war. They were operating more or less in East Mississippi and West Alabama. But when the action started taking place down in Mobile, of course, they were down there. And they were ordered to come back to, I believe it was a place in Mississippi, I can't recall it right now, where they all came to. And then they were ordered to come to Gainesville here, thinking the Yankees were going to come up the river with their gunboats and so forth. But they didn't. They came overland, and that's when they decided to throw the guns in the river. We decided on an attempt to raise the cannon after Visa Hendricks and I met Mrs. Harrelson, is it Harrelson or Harrison, down here on a Sunday. And she of course showed us all the churches and where the hospital was, and brought us to the cemetery, and we saw the cannon. And we were lost. What in the world? How in the world are we doing anything with that cannon? So she said if we could do something about a permanent stand for it, that she would call Kim Waste and talk with them. Well, they agreed, but they would have had to took some big trucks over here in the middle of this thing. And she explained to us at that hospital, if 2 or 3 guys died in one night, they were probably buried in one grave. We sure didn't want to disturb those graves. That was not our intention at all. So we decided we were going to have to do some of this thing manually. Only thing we could come up with was getting a big drive pipe that the gas wells use, put it in the end of this thing, and get over there and pick it up. And we were going to rock it back and forth until we could get some cross ties where this pad is, and also put cross ties under it. Well, Rick LaCroix went to the treatment facility on Highway 25, and they donated some cross ties. And we got the drill pipe, I forget now who furnished it. So the camp and the band, the members in the band, we got together on a Saturday and decided we'd come down and see what we could do with it. Well, we stuck a drill pipe in this thing. All of us got under it, and we picked up. Friends, it looked like that when we got through. We hadn't moved it an inch. So really, we'd lost. What are we going to do? We'd driven all the way down here and had done that. We had to cross ties and so forth. So fortunately, I had brought an old F600 truck, and with it, I had 2 big tractor jacks. So we thought, let's try it. So we took a jack, put it in the muzzle end of it, and sure enough, we were able to raise it. We kept rocking it, going to the back end. We kept rocking it back and forth until we were able to get the cross ties under it and the sides. And when we got to this top one, of course, we had to moon shape it out so the trunnion would sit down in it. You know, it didn't take all that long to do that. We were all thinking it'll stay here till we can get it done permanently. That stayed here 22 years. But where we had cut out for the trunnions to be placed began to decay. And we got worried that it's going to fall on a child maybe, because they played all over it. And so we decided, General Gorgas chapter decided what we'll do is see if we can get it put on a permanent stand, a concrete stand, so we won't have to worry about it anymore. And we got together and talked about it, and finally began to get some ideas and think about people that we may employ to help us. And this group came together, and you see what they did. We are eternally thankful for them and what they did. I think I'll tell you a little bit about Selma. I realize it's hot, but it was probably hot back then too. Selma is an operation every Southerner ought to be proud of. There was none like it. Now, we had Tredegar up north in Richmond, Virginia, but Tredegar didn't produce as many cannons as was produced here. Catesby A.P. Jones, that's A.P.R. Jones, which is Scottish for son of Roger Jones, and Mr. Brooks. Brooks designed the cannon, Catesby manufactured it. Now, Admiral Porter in the United States Navy expressed his concern. He said the only two people he really hated to lose to the Confederacy were these two gentlemen. They came right here to Selma to build these cannons. Well, this is molded in one piece, and then those bands are heated and put on it. It's the strongest thing in the Western Hemisphere at that time. One shot, one of these on the shore sunk the Tecumseh. Now, you let the Yankees say something about it, they won't admit it, but that happened. And this one, being a smoothbore, was designed to be mounted really on the bank. And if you were a kid, you throw rocks across the water and watch it bounce. You're supposed to shoot a 150, 200-pound projectile, and it would go and hit that boat. Now, I guess that's what happened to the Tecumseh. I think you gave everybody a headache that was in it. I was fortunate enough to talk to a fellow by the name of Jowers from Selma at one of the state meetings of the SCB, and talked him into going around showing us some things about Selma. Selma started off as a 5-acre plant, and it was not producing cannons at that time, but they bought it from this gentleman, and before the war was over, that installation covered 50 acres. They made just about everything in the way of armaments that the South needed. They also made uniforms. It was a part of it for the Army, but there were 3,000 people working at Selma at the close of the war. That's skilled and unskilled. Now, Catesby Jones run into a guy by the name of Peacock. Peacock was working at a foundry over in Shelby County. He was the best known iron maker in the United States. He talked him into coming. He talked to a guy named Gay, who was a guy that would put the rifles in the cannons. So they got him to come. And they manufactured these things. And then Captain Jones, or Catesby Jones, who was a captain, he would test these things. This is one of 73 that he released for use out of 123. What they would do, just pack it full of powder and ignite it. And then they'd pack it full again a little bit further and put a projectile in it. Well, he was in his office one afternoon, and they were testing one. A chunk about big as a football came through his office door. The testing site was about a quarter of a mile down the river. He had it moved about another mile and a quarter down the river. But I think y'all can understand that much powder and a big shot, what it would do. It was a tremendous gun. Of course, our good friends, Yankees, when they came in, they destroyed Selma Gunworks altogether. Not thinking we'd ever be in another war, I guess. Thought they'd whip the world. It wasn't long before we went another one. You realize what all this would have meant to the United States if they left it alone? Now, they did leave Tredegar alone, but it wasn't anything like we got here. It did make these cannons, but not as many and not as large. They were made from, I guess, 6 inches up to about 11 inches. And an 11-incher was a pretty good sized gun. Well, after we got the cannon mounted, of course, we, at that time, knew that someday we would have to put this on it. And, of course, the other one lasted 22 years before we were able to talk ourselves into doing it. And we were just lucky that we were able to find these people. And, Craig found his nephew, I believe it was, and of course, Mr. Lamb found Mr. Thad Goldman, yeah, that had the machinery to lift this thing up. I don't know where Thad was the day we were down here with the cross.
He's a hard worker. He works all the time.
Through some more research, we think we have found the unit that was manning this cannon the day they threw it in the river. They had been to Mobile and were shipped upriver over to Mississippi, and then they were detailed to come here, 9 of them. And of course, Forrest had his cavalry units here. So who actually did the pushing, I can't tell you, but it was pushed over. And it stayed there until 1874 or somewhere along in that neighborhood. I won't go through the details of who ordered who to do what, because it's a little bit boring, especially since we don't know those people. Now the MOS&B decided just having the cannon sitting down here with no history about it or anything, we'd be losing the part of what we should do. And we decided to build to have a plaque made and put on a sloping piece of granite with a backing and a base. And on that plaque, I'll read you the specifications it's going to be on. The weight of this gun is 10,700 pounds. Muzzle diameter is 8 inches. 2 1/4 inch thick at the barrel. It was cast 11 December 1863. Delivered 27 June 1864 to Mobile. Shipped up Tom Big River to Hernando's Bluff south of Gainesville. When the war was at an end, Confederates pushed this and another cannon into the river. The United Confederate Veteran Camp in 1876 retrieved S-26 and placed it unmounted in the cemetery. It has a 4,000-yard range and shoots 150 to 200 pound solid ball to skip across the water. This is a 26 cannon produced at Selma. That's how you can tell when they were produced, because they'll have a number. And it'll have S for Selma and T for Tredegar, and it'll have the date. It is a group of 73 of the 123 Brooke rifle guns and cannons that were committed to service by Commander Jones. The muzzle-loading cannon was the best, most powerful used in the war, which was extensively tested before being committed to service. As again, Second Admiral of the United States Porter regretted losing only 2 men to the Confederacy: John Mercer Brooke, the designer of the powerful gun, and Catesby A.P.R. Jones, the constructor of the weapon itself. Commander Jones hired Peacock, one of the best iron experts on the continent. He also obtained the services of Simon Gay, an experienced iron worker and one of the few men who had any skill knowledge on boring a cannon. The S-26 is placed in this part of the cemetery where over 200 unknown Confederate and Union soldiers are buried to be a memorial to those veterans. In 1995, members of the, I won't go into that, that was General Rhodes Camp, came up and placed it on cross ties.